Hi everyone, just before we get into another episode of What a Load of Bulls, we just want to give a shout out to our partners, Newcastle Car and Truck Rental. Newcastle Car and Truck Rental are a locally owned company servicing Newcastle and the Hunter. Todd, Holden and family pride themselves on being part of the local community, and you feel that when you step through their doors. It isn't a different person every time you call, it's the same people taking care of business and taking care of you. So next time you're in need of a rental, be it a truck to move, a ute for those everyday DIY jobs, or a car to get the family around on a day out, be sure to contact the team at Newcastle Car and Truck Rental by visiting www.newcastlerental.com or by calling 02 49 081 081. And don't forget to tell them DJ and Simon sent you. Welcome back, everyone. Episode 46 of the What a Load of Bulls podcast, brought to you by DJ Dilworth, Simon Little, in collaboration with the Bulls Academy. Simon, the founder and CEO of the Bulls Academy, how are you, mate?
I'm very good. How are you going, mate? Have you had a decent week this week?
Yeah, good couple of weeks, mate. We had a good interview, which we'll talk a bit about later. I had a lot of fun with that one. So we did. It was a good chat. But yeah, mate, pretty quiet at the minute, I suppose, in terms of on the green stuff. Off the green's just admin galore. We're that busy part of the time where local pennant seasons are finished and then you're getting prepared to go to state finals. So we've got 3 teams going away. We nearly had a 4th. Our per 5 grade went down to the local rivals Curry on the last bowl by 1 shot. Unbelievable. So it was. The guy let his bowl go and turned around, threw his cloth in disgust, went to shake our skip's hand in concession, and then the bowl straightened up, got the jag and got the shot out of it. Oh, it was dreadful.
No. Oh, well.
Dreadful, so. But seems what like can you do? It's part of the game, unfortunately. Our skip still had a chance to do it with his last bowl and he missed, but it's one of those things. Can't win them all. Also was less of a headache for me trying to organise accommodation and travel for them down to Sydney. So instead, we've got grade 3 going to Yamba, grade 4 going to Wagga, and grade 1 going to Edlong. So we'll talk about those in a couple of weeks, mate, when we get down to the nitty-gritty. In the big event, Platinum Pennant, the Tarrant Point Scorchers.
Yeah.
Last podcast, we said if you got 3 wins out of your last 3 games, I'd let you host one. 2 of those games have gone. And my bet was pretty darn safe, wasn't it, Simon?
I think, yeah. It ended up that way, yeah. As much as I was optimistic going into those couple of games, and yeah, it just didn't work out, no.
Oh, mate, there's optimism and there's delusion, but you crack on, optimism. It's been a tough year for you, mate.
It has been a tough year. It's been a tough year, but look, 1 game to go, give it our all for our last game, but yeah. Look, mathematically, it's still possible. Miracles do happen every now and then, but mathematically, we can still survive. But a lot of results need to go our way, and a massive, massive victory over a red-hot Raymond Terrace side. So
who are chasing a top 5 spot.
Correct. So,
we'll talk mostly about that next week, folks. We will be doing 2 weeks in a row. Well, we'll talk about that later too. But, mate, if there's any consolation...
Yeah.
You along with Louise Cronin, Chris Razans, and Kyle Hansen are the best performing Tarrant Point team.
Well, thanks very much.
10 games played, 6 wins, 4 losses.
Small consolation, but it doesn't really mean anything, does it? It's a team game, so regardless of, each individual rink performance, is what we bang on about, isn't it? About a team game, team of 12. You can't just have 4 players on a team. So, look, yeah, little consolation, but you prefer the big board and the wins, so unfortunately they just didn't come.
That's it, man. And like I said, I was just trying to cheer you up, man. I don't like you seeing you depressed all the time. So it's been a tough trot for the old Tarrant Point, but mate, every team has their day. You managed to win 3 state pennants in a row. Now you know what it's like to battle away.
That's it.
So you do. But so Platinum, we'll talk about it more about that probably next week, mate, in a build-up. There's a lot to play for there, but it's lining up for a very big weekend at Cabramatta, starting off around 11, then into the finals. So, but a big couple of weeks at Cabramatta, because, like you said, that's on next week, but this week they're also hosting the Interregions.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's just 3 Interregions that are going to be held. The seniors are on as we speak. So they are being held between Cabramatta and Caberville Diggers. Then you guys and the girls head down for later on. So it's the men's open and then the women's, which is the combined seniors and open. So Cabramatta will be hosting that along with Mount Lewis and again Caberville Diggers. So, mate, bit of a change of pace, getting away from Platinum back into the rep arena. How is it, mate? Like, you looking forward to it? I mean, it's a bit of a split of Tarrant Point and Engadine, and one token Grandviews player in there, from what I can see.
Yeah,
not a bad token, to be fair. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, is it? How's the mindset for that? Is it? Are you still down in the doldrums? Or are you going to be able to put that aside and focus on interregions?
No, look, I think everyone just takes it into a fresh weekend and looking forward to hopefully some victories coming our way. Yeah, look, we're combining obviously mostly with the Engadine boys, so they're obviously in good form at the moment. They're on the verge of maybe a top 5 position if results go their way in the final round of Platinum Pennants. So they're obviously firing away and getting some good victories. So hopefully we can ride off the back of that, and the boys from Tarrant Point, we can add our decent performances into that mix as well. And hopefully our region, the Metro Southeast region, hopefully we can get some good wins. We're in a bit of a tough section, I reckon. Not really. We've got a good team in there, a couple of good teams that we need to play well against. So yeah, looking forward to this Saturday, first game of the Saturday, and 3 group games or 3 section games, and then quarterfinal, semi-final, and final on Monday. So yep. Looking forward to hopefully a packed weekend and hopefully a Monday of playing bowls as well.
Yeah, so it's officially the first Interregions Championship, because we have unified everything now. Everyone's now a region, but it is, in the men's and seniors in particular, it's been around for years. It's been interzone. LOR won the last one. Yep. They'll be trying to win the first one. Don't know if you can call them they are defending champions, but I don't know whether that's the official title, because it has changed names. But they'll obviously be able to get it. As you said, I mean, you got a pretty tough section there. Metro Northwest, you get Southeast, Metro Southeast, and Northern Rivers. So straight off the first cab off the rank, mate, you're up against Peter Taylor and all them boys who won it a couple of years ago at the mighty Maitland City.
They did, yeah.
They did, so they know what they're doing. They're loud, they're boisterous, they're confident. Some interesting characters in that team too, mate. So that'll be a good one for you to start off with. Got to hit the ground running. Then who have you got round 2? You've got Metro Northwest. So it's Metro Derby there with the old Zone 10, which is Maryland's Wenty, and who else? Anyone else in that? Maryland's and Wenty. Yep, seems to be the only clubs involved in that one. So, yeah. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Carlingford have got someone in there. So, yeah, that'll be a tough one for you as well, mate. And your final round game, Southeast. Here's Southeast got playing for them. Let's have a quick look. Oh, just the legend, Brett Dupre. Rowan Wilson, who was on fire at the recent state championships, and of course the legend that is Michael Wilkes. So no pushovers there, mate. No, so you got to win. Got to be top 2 to make through the quarterfinals, which is a new thing in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. It used to just be semi-final and final, but yeah, quarterfinal with the aim, and then after that, anyone's game in the knockouts. Hey,
absolutely, and yeah, some pretty decent sides too in the other sections. Like, teams are represented from the Sydney clubs, like your St John's Park, Cabramatta, and then also up your neck of the woods, the greater Newcastle area. Pretty much a red hot side up there too.
Don't associate me with them boys. We're Hunter Valley, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, but it's up that direction. It's north.
Yeah, not by choice. For our sins, we've been put near to greater Newcastle. Still don't like that, because they don't realize greater means like the wider area. They just think they're great, so they do. So we need to consider changing that name, I think. Email Simon at thebullsacademy.com for all complaints. Yeah, but yeah, man, that'll be a good one. So we'll be able to talk about that next week. And then, like we said, so that's this week at Cabra. Next week at Cabra, we'll talk about Platinum Pen Finals, and then you're back there again, aren't you, for champion singles?
I am indeed, yes. That week after Platinum Pennant Finals, Cabramatta is hosting champion singles. So, yeah, I'll be there first few days anyway, and hopefully there for a couple of days after. Yeah,
they're part of the group of 5 or 6 clubs that are hosting the champions for the next few years. So they're on sharing it around. So that'll be good to go. Plenty of others happening around the green, mate. We have been doing fortnightly podcasts, but like you said, we're considering going back to weekly for a little bit, because not only have those 3 events we just talked about happening, Interregion, Platinum Pennant, champions, Queensland State Championships have just kicked off as well.
They are, yeah.
You want to give a shout out to someone in particular?
Oh, yeah, my skipper from Tarrant Point, our marquee player, Chris Rosannes, managed to win Queensland State Fours, him and his boys from Pine Rivers. Congrats to those boys, and yeah, making their way to the Nationals then in the fours. Big shout out to those boys. Well done, Pine Rivers boys.
And Chris must be playing well at Tarrant Point, mate, if you're willing to give him a shout out. You love a name drop. So you do. I'll go bigger, but Jeremy Henry won the triples up there, mate, and the mixed pairs. He's only just moved up to Queensland, just showing you it's pretty easy up there. Life in the old dog yet.
Good on Jizza,
eh? Hey, we'll talk about that more in, like we said, in a couple of weeks' time, mate. So the main thing this week was our player interview. So we weren't too sure we'd get this big fish, or, well, you were sure you'd get him. We wasn't too sure if he'd talk to me.
Yeah.
So we're a bit worried about how well this would go, but it ended up, mate, it's going to be a two-parter, isn't it?
Yeah, we talked at length for this guy. Had plenty to talk about, and it was a good chat between the three of us.
Yeah, Mr. Ali Forsyth from the Clayton Club, formerly of Tarrant Point Club and New Zealand Black Cap. So Ali gave up a fair bit of his time to the interview. It's going to be about an hour and a half or slightly over, but we sat there until the wee hours of the morning, so we did talk.
We did indeed.
Brilliant to talk to Ali. This is it's up there in one of the top interviews I've done now. Just he's so. Yeah, we'll talk more in a second after we listen to the interview. But mate, like it's just so varied. Like there was banter in it, there was deepness in it. You can see how his brain works when he's on the green. But he's just, off the green he can be quite a quiet fellow. On the green he's intense. Man, it was just a really good interview to hear from him, the way he thinks about things.
Yeah, that background into those types of bowlers and what they do think about on the green, and it's great to get that mindset and a look into their thoughts and stuff that happens to them, not only happens to club members, and you can relate to even the elite players at times, and it is really relatable to any type of player, regardless of what level you play at. So yeah, it's really a great interview.
Just can't relate to drawing so many touchers and hitting so many drives. So he goes, that's all we can't relate to. We can do it, just not as regularly.
Yeah.
But now, folks, this is a real good one. Well, we think so anyway. We are a little bit biased. But so here you go, everyone. Part 1 of Ali Forsyth. Ladies and gentlemen, very lucky to bring you another player interview here on the What a Load of Bulls podcast. Bit of an intro for this player. New Zealand Black Cap number 95. Has played 442 times for New Zealand. World Outdoor Championships, he's got 1 gold medal, 3 bronze. The World Champion Singles winner in 2004. Asia Pacifics, 2 golds, 4 silvers, 2 bronze. 2 Aussie titles, one in the mixed pairs with his partner Kelly and the other one in the Aussie Open triples. And he's currently a bowls manager / coach at the Clayton Club in Victoria. Everyone, welcome Ali Forsyth.
Good evening, gents and DJ.
We've started already. Good, mate. Thanks for getting up the time to come on. It's good to have you on. You get mentioned more than most on this podcast, so it's good to actually sit down with you.
Yeah, look, it's always a pleasure to chat and have a catch up. So yeah, excited for the next hour.
Yeah, good. Yeah, first questions from Simon. He didn't even he wasn't brave enough to ask him yet. But what's it like being the second best player in your household?
Oh, well used to that now. I'm more than comfortable riding on Kelly's coattails. She's had an unbelievable last 2 years or so, and been it's pretty impressive to sit back and watch, really. So I'm quite comfortable with that position. And if you're aware of not the best bowler in your household club, I now own half of the life membership, so quite comfortable.
Well done.
Good on you, mate. Nah, mate, just to give her a bit more of a rap, we've said to you and we've said to her as well, mate, she was the first woman we've had on, and mate, it was one of my favourite interviews. She was brilliant. It was the first time I've ever got to talk to Kelly, but she was insightful. She was good to talk to. It was really, really good, mate. So yeah, all credit to her.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable ride, and I think still got a long way to go yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mate, just on that, you're the first Kiwi to come on here.
Yeah.
There you go. It's all onwards and
bad.
upwards from here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate. Growing up back in New Zealand in the beginning, where did it all start for you, mate? How did you get into the club? How did you get into the sport? What was your first club?
So I'm originally from Nelson, top of the south in New Zealand. First started playing indoor carpet bowls when about 1987. Played with mum and dad. I'd save them getting a babysitter and things like that. We played as a family 4 along with my brother. So I already had a pretty good grounding. So I played that for like a good 10 years before I even started playing outdoor. So my outdoor club, the first one was Stoke, which I only lived probably 100 metres away from. And they used to have a massive singles tournament back in the day. It started probably in the mid-'80s and it went for 25 odd years and maybe longer, and all the top players around New Zealand always came and played. So even when I was 4 and 5, I was going along there to watch with my dad for 3 or 4 days. So yeah, that was the first club, and so close to home that once I did start the game, that I was practicing nigh on daily.
Yeah, it's pretty similar story for a lot, isn't it? Like, it's usually a family member that gets you into it, and mate, it gets addictive pretty early too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just on that, mate. So what was your first sort of taste of success then in the game? Was it a tournament win, club championship? Was it a zone title? What was your first thing where you won and thought, man, I might be all right at this?
It all happened pretty quickly. Like, I won a few junior events. Actually, like in my 3rd or 4th year, I won a junior event right-handed. Was biking home. I'm push biking home one morning to go and play the Champ Junior Pairs, and dear old lady decided to open the car door as I'm going by, and I've gone over the top and broke my left hand, or a few bones. So I ended up going to the hospital and getting stitched up, and then went away and played lead for the old man, and we ended up winning the Champ Junior Pairs. And I ended up playing the next 6 weeks right-handed. So yeah, that was probably the first sort of minor event that I won in the club level. But when I sort of look back on with a few laughs, sort of how the hell did that happen?
Mate, that's a brilliant story. It's
brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
That's fantastic. So it is. Mate, first representative selection, and how did it make you feel? Was it like an under-18s event? Was it a senior event? What was it? When was the first time you got picked on a rep team?
Oh, it would have been probably my second or third. I was around the 16, 17 years of age when I started, so I was probably I never got running under 18s. It was too late. So the Nelson junior rep side was the first one I got picked in, so I was probably about 19, 20 when that happened. Yeah, it was exciting. I played with a former New Zealand cricketer by the name of Jock Edwards, part of the great Edwards family that became synonymous with the game of bowls, was brother of Dave Edwards, who later became the New Zealand coach. So yeah, that was one of the very early recollections of my my rep career. And yeah, a couple of years later, I went straight into the senior side.
Yeah, very good, man. It's a popular sport in New Zealand, isn't it? Like a lot of people have played it, like famous people and stuff as well, haven't they?
Yeah, massive. I mean, look, I think it's one of those sports that, whether you're 9 or 109, like, you can still roll a bowl down, sort of thing. And those competitive cricketers and rugby players, or netball players, once they've finished their competitive, sports that have sort of contact sports, if they're still looking for another avenue, it's sort of, well, certainly back in those days, it came down to bowls and golf. So,
yeah, right.
And a lot of people did both.
Well, there you go. I just knew my interest in New Zealand bowls sort of picked up, not even just from watching the game, but it was actually from rugby union. I don't know if Simon knows this, but there was a one-cap All Black that came over to play for Ulster Rugby, who back in the day, die hard. It was every game at Ravenhill on a Friday night. And in the match day program, what's your favourite thing to do away from the game? It was long bowls, and that was Paul Steinmetz.
There you go. Yes,
yeah, right.
I remember played for Wellington.
So he played one cap for the All Blacks at inside centre. Came over to play Ulster. Man, he was a legend over here at Ulster. But that got my interest in actually New Zealand bowls, which is then when we started watching, and then you pick up, about Bellis and Brassy and all that there, and them legends of the game. So just on that as well, mate, just talk us through bowls in New Zealand. Then how's the setup? Like, can you play, I don't know what the weather's like over there, can you play 12 months of the year like you do here in Australia, or is it more like back at home where me and Simon get to play 2 weeks of the year because the weather's terrible?
Probably somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
Very similar to Melbourne, right? So down here in Melbourne, you're looking at sort of early September. You're looking at kicking off and starting your season and playing right through to roughly now, like around about the 1st of May. Anything in between that, you're braving the elements. There's a few indoor stadiums over in New Zealand, but not many. So you're really at the mercy of the weather in the middle of winter.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So do they play pennants and stuff like we see here in Australia, mate, or like league matches like we had? I know, touching back on Kelly, but also talking to Ryan Best. So the Canadians don't really play pennants or anything like that. They just play championships. Right. So do you have a pennant set up there in New Zealand, or how does it work?
Once again, it's different again. Very few, if any, centres in New Zealand would have a pennant-style format. I think Canterbury might have one that was called the Watson Shield, which was like a twilight event, but all of New Zealand's pennant, if you want to call it that, it's actually like a 7-man format, so it's a single, a pair, and 4.
Yeah,
and you need to win 2 out of 3 to win your rubber sort of thing. So your inter club and your inter centre are both in sevens formats. So it's sort of changed over the years. Now it's like one big tournament where any club or any centre can put their name forward to go to the New Zealand inter club or inter centre, and then it's like one big tournament where you have to win so many games to qualify, or the top 8 go through to whatever it is. It's a long time since I played in it, but I know that that's the format. So when I grew up, like, I was at a relatively small club and relatively small centre, so I played a lot of singles growing up, and when I say growing up in the bowls fraternity. So it was actually a very long time before I actually understood and knew how to play a good game of fours. And that was one of the main reasons when I moved to Australia back in 2007 that I was really keen to develop how to play the game of fours right.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'm just talking on that, mate. You're mentioning about clubs and then centres. Am I right in saying centres is like what our zones and regions that we have over here in New South Wales, Victoria, or it's slightly different format over there?
Well, so clubs are obviously the same, but so there's centre would be, I guess, the same as zones. So basically, the wider Nelson region would be a centre.
Yep.
And you might have, I don't know, say 20 to 24 clubs would be in that centre. And then you've got the Canterbury region, which would have more again, and then there's some that have a lot less. So some of the really small centres might only have a half a dozen clubs if they're in the smaller rural areas. So I'm guessing there's something like 38 centres in New Zealand. So all sort of broken up into segments. They used to have 6 regions, so there would be 2 in the South Island, which had it was like Nelson down to Canterbury, and then the other half would be another region, and then you had 4 regions in the North Island. So then it would just depend on how they wanted to break it up, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. So moving back into your career, then, mate. What's the first big title you won?
That would have been New Zealand singles.
Yep.
So was that January 2002? So I was only I was only like a 6-year player.
Yeah. Okay.
And an absolute unknown at that stage. I think there was a small development squad that a wider like youth squad that I'd been picked in. But apart from that, relative unknown. Went up to Wellington, and couldn't believe it. Got right through and ended up winning the New Zealand singles final 21-5 or 6 after a couple of close calls in the quarters and semis. So, it was a pretty big kickstart to a career, because on the back of that, I got selected into the New Zealand under-25 side.
Yeah, very good. Very good. And then obviously, mate, moving fast forward a bit to 2004, World Champion of Champions over here in Warilla. Right. Talk us through that, mate, how you got to that level, and then that particular competition. Was that your first time travelling overseas, or?
So on the back of my first New Zealand title, I went to the very first World Champion of Champions, which was at Moama. Just trying to think. I know Darren Burnett played in the final. I think he actually got beat by the boy from Namibia. And I won 8 of my 13 games, and I lost to the bottom 5 of the section. So I beat the top 8 and I lost to the bottom 5. So it was a really big learning curve for me about, like when you're playing a game, treating everyone absolutely the same. Like if you went into a game, you're thinking, I've just come off beating Scotland and Ireland. I'm good to go here, and I'm playing someone that you might think's not as good, and then they sit you on your ass. And that happened a few times, and it was a really big learning curve for me. So luckily, fast forward 12 months, I win the New Zealand singles again, and go to Warilla for the World Champion of Champions in 2004. And actually, I went through undefeated, so I won every game. I think there was only once I went to a tiebreak, which was a semi-final against Derek Johannes.
I read up on that earlier, actually, before I came on. I did see that. And you played Scottish fella in the final, David Anderson.
Yep. Still keep in contact with him from time to time. Good man.
Well, that's the beauty of the sport, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Especially like something like the World Champion of Champions, right? Like, so, okay, you've got your World Championships, Com Games, things like that, which is all selected. But you go to a World Champion of Champions, everyone's won their right to go there. They might not be in the top 5 in their country, but at some stage they've earned their way there. So that everyone's coming from different stages of their career, different walks of life. And you sort of find that those tournaments, like you get your little different groups that start off the week and everyone stays pretty close. But by the end of the week, it's almost just like one big group and everyone's getting on and having a great time. And really are wonderful experiences. And I've been very, very fortunate that I've been to 3 of those. And yeah, like it's very, very good memories that I look back on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again great part of the sport. Being able to have stories like that there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, mate, you're a world champ. You haven't even been picked for the Black Caps yet, have you? Like your actual big selection came at the Asia Pacifics in 2005. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my full debut. So I played 3 or 4 times in the under 25s, or then it changed halfway to under 30s. But yeah, I got picked for the Asia Pacifics in Melbourne, which was the sort of precursor to the Commonwealth Games. Straight into the death seat in the singles, and
Yep.
second game, I finally remember playing one Stephen Glasson on the end rink, and I think he was the only Australian playing at that point, so they had the whole Australian squad sitting on the sideline cheering him on and giving me the raspberries while they're at it. And so that was a pretty quick introduction. I won that game, and then very quickly got sat on my ass the next one by Thou from Fiji. So but still, like I look back on that, and I think I dropped 3 games for the tournament. So that one to Thou, and then I went right through undefeated the rest of the sectional play. Won my quarter final, and then I had to come up against Ryan Bester in the semi final. Not only and back then you had to play off for bronze.
Yep.
So I knew I had to win either that game or the bronze medal game for obviously a personal medal, but also the men's overall medal. And Bester gave me one of the bigger floggings of my life. And then so I got into the bronze medal game, and who do I have to play but Steve Glasson again? And I lost by a shot in each set. So end up coming away with no medal and no team medal, and then 2 days later get the phone call not selected for the next event. So it was a bit of a harsh lesson, I guess. But once again, I was pretty young and inexperienced, so it was one of those things where I look back on it now, or even 12 months after it happened, and I was going, well, look, it wasn't a dreadful call by any stretch, but it was one I probably wasn't quite expecting.
Yeah, okay. So I was actually about to touch on that, but the selection process within New Zealand. So going back to before that event, so what do you have? Like, we know the Jackaroos, they have camps and everything nowadays. A lot of the other countries are following suit on that. Is there New Zealand trials that you get called up to go and try for the New Zealand team, and then from that process, how do you then find out, right, Ali, you are the singles rep at the Asia Pacifics? Back then it was pretty early days, so it's probably not a text message. This is a phone call, maybe an email, a letter in the post. What is it? How did you find out?
Back in the day, it was a letter in the mail.
Yeah.
And that was the first you would hear about it. And then it was like, I think once they'd wait a week for that, and then you might get a phone call after that. But when I got dropped or not selected, then that was definitely a phone call. I remember that from might have been Peter Shaw from memory.
Yep.
He was on the selection panel at that stage, but he was very good. Like he explained, he went through it all pretty well, and as I said, like it made me more determined. Like I think from memory, that was like October, November, and then the New Zealand Nationals again were in Wellington, and I made it right through to the semi-final and final again. So yeah, it was like one of those things. I'm going to prove them wrong and use that as motivation.
No, that's good. I'm just going to pause there for a second because your Wikipedia page says you won the bronze medal in 05 at the Asia Pacifics.
It might be because I was third equal. Well, I was fourth, but we played off for bronze, and no medal forthcoming.
Okay, mate, so go back just quickly to that Asia Pacific. We talked quite in depth about the final stages of it, mate. Who was the first cap? Like, who did you play your first game in the colours of New Zealand? Who was it against?
Oh, now you're testing the memory. It was definitely one of the Asian countries. It would have been, I'm going to narrow it down to 2. It was either Hong Kong or Singapore.
Yep. Can you remember stepping out, putting the shirt on for the first time and stepping out on the green? Can you remember that feeling?
Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking. But luckily, from memory, he was pretty rough. We were playing at, obviously, Darebin, and I think that was one of the few occasions where it actually run half decent. and yeah, it took me a couple of ends to get into it, but once like he was giving me plenty of room to draw a shot, then it was managed to settle down pretty quickly and get into my work.
It just becomes a game of balls after that, really, doesn't it?
It really does. And look at look, it's nice that it's special and it's nice that you're nervous, but in all honesty, like if you've got a decent sort of process that you go about, everything else is just white noise. And it's just another bowl. Just thinking about what am I doing with the next bowl, and just getting back into what you know best.
So we sort of touched on it there, mate. You've got home 2 days later. You said you got home and there's a phone call. You're not going to the next event. Was the next event the Commonwealth Games, or was there one between?
No, there was multi or tri-nations, I think, between New Zealand, Australia, and Malaysia, from memory, and then that led into the Commonwealth Games.
Okay, so when? Oh, sorry, mate. Go ahead.
I was just going to say they obviously had a pretty fixed idea that unless something special happened, that they were going to go with a different lineup for that. And Jamie Hill came into the side to play pairs with Rowan Brassey, and Russell Meyer went into the singles. And Jamie had a hell of a lot more experience than I had, and obviously, that's what they went with, and the rest is history, I guess. Like, I don't think they had a fabulous Commonwealth Games from memory, but I certainly wasn't death riding. I knew most of them well enough that I respected all of their abilities. And the triples had won Asia Pacifics as well, so they were never going to change that, which was Lawson, Gervin, and Justin Goodwin. So it's, look, you use those as, I said earlier, like as a motivator and as a learning curve. And sometimes, it takes you a little longer to get over it, but, also, you got to be realistic that, it was still very early days.
Yeah, you're probably right there in what you said about they've probably already had that lineup almost pre-selected before the Asia Pacifics, didn't they? And to give people a couple of different things. So when the phone call comes and you're not in that Tri-Nations team, does the focus then go to, right, I'm going to try hard to get into Melbourne, or was there a back of the head thought of, well, that's probably me not going to Melbourne for the Commonwealth Games then? What was that bit like?
Oh, more the latter. I think they'd pretty much said that the Tri-Nations event that they were going to was basically a shadow lineup, and it was going to take something, astronomical for that not to be the Com Games lineup. And so the focus shifted, after probably 2 weeks ago. Right, let's get back to doing well domestically and control. I wasn't saying this at the time about controlling the controllables, but just keep looking forward. And I'd pretty much park the Com Games for Melbourne, and had already started looking forward to other things.
2008 World Championships, maybe?
Well, a bit earlier than that.
Did that come in your...
Oh, yes. Yep. Well, I mean, that's obviously the next major event, but obviously for me, getting another run the Asia Pacifics would have been the next look at for me, especially being on home soil. That was up in Christchurch. So, to play in World Championships, my theory was I was going to have to play Asia Pacifics. So, to sort of break it down into slightly more smaller increments and, try not to, you think of it as one big picture. It can be a bit daunting sometimes. So just breaking it down into little bits and pieces sometimes makes it a bit easier to process.
Interesting thought process there. Then Simon, not looking too far in advance, just looking little steps, and then get in after that.
That's it. Yeah, perfect kind of coaching tips for our listeners out there. That you've got a golden mindset that don't look at the big picture, look at the next step, and take those small steps towards that probably bigger goal. So yeah, good tips there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did say there you don't think they had a red hot Commonwealth Games in 2006. Well, that's probably true, mate, because if you listened to a podcast 12 months ago, it was mentioned, now you did listen because you commented, the men haven't actually won a medal at the Commonwealth Games since 2002.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that later, so we will. So you made it into that Asia Pacifics, mate. Then it was on to Christchurch 2008 World Championships, and you've been picked again, and you got the run on the singles again.
Yeah.
So how was the feeling when that phone call came to realize, yep, I'm getting another crack at this, actually at a World Championships?
Yeah, extremely exciting, especially on home soil, because you don't get a better crack than that. Like it's your, pet conditions, I guess. Had played a lot of bowls in the lead up in Christchurch, and I had just moved to Australia at that point. So I actually came back. I had like 5 months up in Newcastle at Raymond Terrace, and came back, and I actually spent 5 months in Christchurch living there as a lead-in. So we had a number of international events that we had. It was like one every month, and training camps and playing domestic sides and all that sort of thing. So we had a pretty full 4 or 5 month schedule leading into that. So we we were in time to the second, to be fair, so we couldn't have asked for a better prep. And it was so close yet so far, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, mate, you did have a pretty fair run. I mean, you came away with a bronze medal. Semi-final, 21-20, lost to Omar.
Yeah, led 19-12 and only scored one more. And playing at Burnside on the back green, it was extremely wet. And for those that know Burnside greens know that they play unbelievable in the morning, but when it gets a little bit sweaty in the afternoon, it can get a little bit tricky. And just couldn't quite get over the line. And luckily from a New Zealand overall perspective, a guy that we'd actually used for absolute practice, and we played Malaysia for 5 or 6 days in November, and we'd absolutely cleaned them up a treat, but we were relying on Safal and Saeed to go through and win the world title for us to win the overall. So it was kind of a weird feeling rooting for another country when, I didn't know Omar that well at that stage, but it was like, it was one of those things where, well, we're going to get something out of this. The boys had won the pairs and fours and played unbelievable, but we needed a little bit of help from another country to get the overall Leonard Trophy.
Yeah, well, I think actually in my interview with Omar, I think he referred back to that game as well. So he did, about a certain crowd member yelling something at him, upsetting him. He said it was the first real, wow, this is pretty hostile. It was, but he went away, took himself off to the bathroom, or whatever, give his face a wash, came back, and he came back to come back and win that one. So,
well, I don't think he can feel left out, because I got one after the game, probably by the same bloke telling me what a choker I was. So,
well, to be fair, that fella on the sideline didn't play a bad ball that day, did he, Ali?
No, well, that's it.
You know what it's like, mate. Yeah. One of the downsides of the sport, I suppose. Oh, dear. So you already mentioned it, but that's stage 2. You already moved to Australia, but we'll talk about more about that later. But so what was it like? Still trying, New Zealanders obviously don't have a problem coming over here and still getting picked to play for New Zealand. But what is the process like for you? Do you have to report back to New Zealand, or what's the process now that you're here based in Australia to still get picked for these events?
Right. So, for a long time, I think the Nationals were seen as a must enter, must be seen to be, entering and playing well. It was a lot easier, 10, 12 years ago when they had the singles, pairs and fours all at the same time. So our New Zealand Nationals were always over sort of the New Year time. It would start about the 27th of December and go through to the 10th of January sort of thing. And you'd play the singles and pairs the first week and then the fours the second week. And then, since then it's been decided to split it up. And they play 2 events, 2nd to the 8th of January, and then they play the fours and created a mixed pairs, which is sort of the latter part of February, which is a shocking time if you live in Melbourne, because it's right in the heart of our pennant finals and things like that. So it's made it a lot harder to go over more frequently, but certainly when I get the opportunity to, it's in my best interest to go over there and show that I can still play the game at a high level.
So as long as you're still showing an interest in the country itself and going back there for championships, they're happy to still consider you for selections then?
Yes, well, I think they understand that, playing over here in Australia, that, you've got to play at a high level every day. Look, there's a lot more, and this is not meant as a slight at New Zealand, standard at all, but there's so many good players here in Australia, and it doesn't matter what state you're in. You can be anywhere, and if you're not playing well, you're getting beat. And there's always someone pretty keen to, knock you over and, tell you how good they are. So it's, and it makes you battle hardened, you've got to be ready every day you turn up to give your best and play well. Otherwise, you're going to come out second best. So I think they realise and recognise the standard over here is good. And so as long as you're, playing well and still churning out results here, then that's seen as not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're 100% right with the standard over here. It's pretty breathtaking when you get over here, but it's the best country in the world to be playing in. You can play 12 months of the year. So,
absolutely.
Okay, mate. So that was World Championships. Asia Pacific ship, you got picked in 07 and 09 again, both in the singles. Yeah. And then finally, mate, Commonwealth Games call came. So how was it getting that call, text, email, whatever it was?
Yeah, well, it would have been a call. And yeah, extremely exciting, obviously, with it being not that far away in 06, but the opportunity to sort of branch out and see how other athletes, prepare and do all that sort of thing, like being in that different environment was pretty special. The first one, even like Delhi, which was bit scary. There was still right up to the lead up of Com Games where the New Zealand would actually go. So the bowlers went quite early when we ended up getting parked up in Dubai for 4 or 5 days, whilst the New Zealand hierarchy decided, or the NZOC they're deciding, yep, it's going ahead and we're coming, or not, turn around and go home. So once we got there, it was pretty cool. Like the New Zealand side went to India. What was it? End of April, I think, for an 8 Nations event, so for a lead-up event, and then back for October, and very, very interesting place. I'm not sure it would be super high on my list for a third visit, but it was, once again, like, the greens were challenging, but I bloody enjoyed it. Like, once again, that was probably the start of the heartbreaks in the Commonwealth Games results for me so far. I got through, but I lost. Well, not lost, but I came second in the section by half a set from memory, which meant that I had to play an extra game. I didn't go through to the semi-finals, and I had to play Leif Selby from Australia in a playoff game. And I won the first set by a hatful, and then
11-2,
and then lost the second set by something similar,
13-1.
There we go. And then we get to the tie, because it was one of the, I think from memory, it was back in the day where you could give the mat away.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of lopsided scores.
Yeah.
And so, you win the end, and all of a sudden you get last bowl the next end. It was very easy to get on those runs, but, and then got to the tiebreaker and got really unlucky the first end of the tiebreaker. And then, I dropped a 3, I think, on the second end of the tiebreaker, and got 3 on the third end. So I think it was something like 4-3 in the tiebreak from memory.
That's what I've got in front of me here. Man, actually reacts to that. So 4-3 to one and only Leif Selby, as you said.
Yeah.
Who went on to get runner up in that.
That's right. Yep.
So, obviously, that was your first experience at a multi-sport event.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken to a few others around it, and they've sort of said similar to you, mate. There wasn't really a lot of opportunity to get around, was there, because of the amount of security and stuff? But did you get out to see any other real sports or anything? Like, how was that first experience?
That one was a bit different. Like, it was, like, pretty much you're going to the venue, you're playing your sport, and unless there was another venue that was pretty close to you, I don't recall there being a heck of a lot of other travelling around. See, from my perspective, like, I didn't play for the first week and a bit, because they played the pairs and triples first, and then the singles was last. So I was trying to do everything I could to help the pairs and triples do what, prepare and do whatever they needed to do and support them. And then when the time came, then it was time for me, and it was pretty full on schedule. So the whole aspect of going to watch other events was pretty low on my radar.
Yeah. That was back in the days, for those listening, where you don't get picked in 2 events, do you? You're only picked for one event, and that was it, one discipline.
Correct.
Yeah, man, so you've since been, obviously, then to Glasgow in 14, Gold Coast in 18, Birmingham 2022. So give us a brief rundown on each one. The experience in the different countries, obviously a bit more enjoyable in those 3 than maybe it would have been in India.
Yeah, like, Glasgow was pretty neat. Like, it was a good setup, and gee whiz, we'd started so good. I played the triples and 4s. I think we lost an absolute heartbreaker on an extra end in the triples quarterfinal to South Africa. Well, I think we were, like, it was raining, and it was like maybe 9 seconds the green we're playing on, and we had a front toucher on the extra end, and Bobby Donnelly got 2 wicks and 3 slides and drew a side toucher to beat us. And then
I remember watching that, actually.
And he went through and won the gold medal.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really tough one really tough pill to swallow. There's still a few sleepless nights over that bowler and rolling into the head at him, and God knows what speed, and hitting every second bowl on the rink and coming in for shot. But and then we didn't qualify in the 4s. We had one really bad result. I think we lost a PNG on the last bowl, which meant that we had to beat Australia in the last round to go through. So we missed out. Yeah, so once again, no medals for the guys. Joe Edwards had a really good tournament and won the singles. Yeah, so then we'll move forward to Gold Coast, and I look back on that and I think we had a lot of missed opportunities because the greens weren't that dissimilar to what we would get at home. We'd picked a very similar side from the World Championships in 2016, and for whatever reason, we never fired. I think we qualified in 3 of the 4 events unbeaten, but we really never played anyone of note in sectional play, and by the time we got to a quarter final to play like the triples, we played Australia, and we got blown out of the water early and never recovered. And then it was the same in the fours, like I think we played Wales in the last round and had a close game with them. I think we won on the last bowl, and then we went and played England in the quarterfinals and got absolutely slaughtered on an 18-second track, which made no sense. And no one played well that day. And you look back on it and go, well, there was no rhyme or reason to what happened outside of the fact that we probably weren't, because we hadn't played enough tough opposition, we weren't mentally ready for the fight, which is disappointing because there was a lot of effort and time put into getting to that situation, and when they're there, we just didn't aim up, and that's a player problem more than anything else. And then you look forward again to Birmingham, and we were battling hard. Fours, we only just qualified. We had quite a tough section, but we got through to play Wales in the quarterfinal, and we really struggled in the game for the most part. I think we were 6 down with 2 to play, and we picked up an 8. And then we held 2 on the last end, and Jonathan Tomlinson's played an absolute perfect bowl and trailed the Jack a metre for 4 to knock us out. Yeah, another one that sort of haunts us a wee bit. I mean, at least that one was a great shot. Like it was.
Yeah.
He'd missed his first one by so far, and then he came down and played the absolute perfection and put the Jack in a spot that we couldn't even cover if we wanted to. It was just, yeah.
I remember watching that one too, man, just thinking like there's not too many better bowls played than that one. That had to be perfect, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing looking back is I probably could have tried to block the shot because he only had one shot. But, when you miss one by so far, the last thing you want to do is put one in a spot that's going to give him something to work with.
Exactly. Hindsight's a wonderful thing too, isn't it, Ali?
Yeah. And then so we go from that, and then we got a day and a half of soul searching before we head into the triples, and we started off really strong, and then we lost the game to Malta, which was just a disaster because that meant we basically had to beat Scotland to go through, and we were all square. Scotland playing the last and lost the last end, so that was our tournament over in another heartbreak. So a lot of close calls. A lot of ifs and ands, but I guess that's one of the things that still lights a fire in the belly that I'd love to be able to try and correct that and be part of a New Zealand side that does get a medal in the Commonwealth Games and break the hoodoo.
And ring me and tell me. Oh, man, I'd love to see you do it. You know that. So, mate, you've been to 4. Right? You've been selected for 4 Commonwealth Games. A lot of people don't get that chance to. Mm-hmm. Have you got a favourite out of all those? If I held a gun to your head and said pick your favourite, which one would you say?
Gee whiz, it's tough. I mean, they're all special in their own way, and I think probably Gold Coast, even though we were probably the furthest away from a medal. It was a really cool event. It was a lot of good stuff there. Managed to meet a few pretty awesome people, Usain Bolt and a couple of others. So
nice.
Yeah. So and that's one of the amazing things. But it's hard not to get a bit overawed by the situation and starstruck by other people walking around. But at the end of the day, they're all there for the exact same reason that you are, to try and represent their country and win something, to in their respective event.
Yeah, absolutely. So any sports that you went and watched at any of those games, mate, that you maybe didn't think of before the event, but you went and watched and thought, actually, this is quite good?
No, once again, because the bowl schedule is so busy, if you're not playing, you're supporting. And, I mean, outside of evenings, where I know there was one event, I think the guys, most of them went to watch the netball, but I couldn't have thought of anything worse. So that was not for me.
It's actually quite a big sport in New Zealand, but isn't it?
Apparently.
Get on, Yally. All right, calm games, mate. We did the GOAT segment last year, and that's when it sort of came across our path that you hadn't won anything since 2002, and I'm not too sure that counts, mate, because that was actually Mike Kernahan in the singles, and he was born in England, from what I can gather.
He's a dirty scouser.
Yeah, even worse, man.
Even worse.
Well, let's say that he is still our New Zealand coach. I better be careful.
But mate, do you talk about that in the New Zealand setup about how long it has been since the Commonwealth Games? When I find when I came across it, I remember ringing Simon straight away in the research part and going, "Hey, that's like it's mind blowing to me because you are such a big nation, you have done so well at everything.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty mind blowing stat of the Commonwealth Games."
Yeah. Oh, I mean, look, it gets talked about from time to time, but at the end of the day, you're talking about end results, and I guess trying to steer clear of wins and losses, and the old boring answer of getting back into process about what makes you play well, and especially in big moments. I don't know. I think like the one thing that we've tried to get our heads around is playing well and executing under the biggest pressure, under the biggest microscope, and trying to formulate a plan around that rather than just wins and losses, and because that's all just like the cream on the top. That's the cherry on the cake sort of thing. That, yes, you're playing for that, but once again, you're breaking it down into simpler forms and getting it back to what you do and what you do well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's mate, some great insight there. So I'm surprised how deep you actually are, mate. There you go.
Well, I've got such a big belly, mate. There's a lot happening here.
So what was it? 5 quarterfinal losses at that level, mate. So there is a little bit of a monkey on the back, but certainly some. From what you've even said, I mean, I was going to ask you, like, there's obviously some drive there to do it, and you said it yourself. You still hope to be part of that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Look, and the next 12 months are going to have a big bearing, I guess, on like my international career and that sort of thing, because that's one of the major driving factors. Like there's been a few health issues over the last 12 months, which has thrown a spanner in the works, and now that I hopefully am through, the other side of that I can really knuckle down and get some good results on the board that warrants me getting selected for it.
And harder process, obviously, too, with only 3-man teams, as we found out pretty recently.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a bit more ruthless again. I mean, there's probably not the same predicament for New Zealand that there is in, say, Australia, where you could pick 15 to 20 players and they'll all do a darn fine job. But, I mean, we've still got a good core group of younger guys coming through, but it's a matter of, how big a punt, I guess, Bowls New Zealand want to take and how many they want to take, because there's still enough experience there with the likes of myself, Shannon, McElroy, and Tony Grantham, and that, and Blake Signal, and around the squad that they could go down that road, or it's the next crop coming through. So it's interesting. That's the selectors' problem. It's not us. All we can do as players is try and do our best, individually, and then once that gets decided, then how we're going to attack it as a team.
Well, that's the Commonwealth Games. We'll jump back in time a bit here, talk about World Championships. 2006, mate, World Fours champions with Mike Nagy, Blake Signal, and Mike Kernan.
16.
And then 2016, yep, and that was a home one as well.
Yes, yeah.
And then and then a bronze in the triples as well. So how was it, mate, standing on the podium, world champions in a home event?
Unbelievable. So we played the triples the first week. So the pairs and triples was the first week for the guys, and I think from memory the pairs might have even lost the quarterfinal, and we'd done a pretty good job in the triples. I think we were nearly undefeated right through sectional play, and we nearly got rolled in the last game, which could have put us into a playoff, but we managed to get out of jail in a very, very close game, which meant that we were guaranteed the bronze medal before going into the semi-finals.
Nice.
And come up against Australia, who just absolutely cleaned us out. So it was a really disappointing to do all the hard work, and then we get to that situation of the playoff game, and every person's dream is you want to be playing in those big games, and then we just to have a real stinker was and we weren't within I could say probably 12 to 15 shots if we were lucky. So that was a big driving force once we got through the first week to really reevaluate where we're at, and the fours, we come out absolute gangbusters. We went into the last round against Scotland with something like a plus 180 margin after about 7 games. It was something outrageous, and we only just fell over the line against Scotland last end, which means once again we won our sections, and we end up playing Scotland again in the semi-final. Luckily for us, it ended up being a dirty Nor'Wester Christchurch, and for anyone that's played on a Nor'Wester Christchurch, if you can get within a metre, you are a dead set genius. And the poor Scottish fellas, which was Foster, Marshall, and the likes, had no idea on how to play in a Nor'wester, and we won the game pretty comfortably, and which put us into the final against Australia, and perfect situation for us. And we had a few nervy moments early doors, but once we hit our straps, we got a couple of big results go our way in the middle part of the game, and really broke their hearts. And it was just like an unbelievable feeling, but it was almost like you were numb. It was like, almost, is this happening? Like, because you're playing against four of the best players, not only in Australia but in the world, and you've run up a score of nearly 20 shots on them. So it was surreal in a way, but it was an unbelievable feeling.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, you're right. They're 9 out of 9 in sectional play, Simon.
Yeah.
Plus 153 margin.
What?
153.
Mm.
Yep. Round 1 against Israel, 26-10. Round 2 against Canada, 13-9. Round 3 against Fiji, 25-5. Round 4 against Hong Kong, 20-8. Round 5 against the United States, 45-4. Then Brunei, 29-8. South Africa, 36-4.
Mm.
Now they can play.
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
So
Scotland
on top of that, the USA finished third in our section, and we beat them by 40.
They did too.
Oh, yeah.
Simon, 9 played, 6 wins, 3 losses, minus 15 margin.
What? That's crazy.
Brunei, you got Brunei 29-8 yesterday. We've done that. Scotland 23-17 in the sectional.
Yeah.
Wales, you got over them by 14-13, as you said. Then you go into, so you get the bye in the playoffs, and then you play Scotland 20-3. After they've just beat England 20-10, and then you play Australia in the final on 23-4. So pretty comprehensive, mate.
You must have played pretty well, because I didn't think Mike Nagy was that good. Like he rack up scores like that, to be honest. So you must have been playing well, buddy. To carry Mr. Nagy.
Wifey had a pretty good tournament, to be fair to him. He probably struggled a wee bit in the semi-final of the triples and the final of the fours, but outside of that, he played very solid, and allows me to play my game with like attacking game requires guys up front to draw handy, and they did that, and certainly with an experienced head like Mike Kernan playing 2 in the fours, he was influential, and he made a big difference to that four.
Well, he would do. Like, not only Nagy, you had Blake Signal with you.
Yeah. And Blake was very similar. He was terrific in the triples and terrific in the fours up until the final. Probably that was his roughest game, but he still played a lot of good stuff. And as I said to the boys, like it only takes 1 or 2 outstanding performances in a final to make a difference. And Kearney's first 6 or 7 ends certainly set us up. And then I was able to sort of lay the finishing touches, as it was.
Yeah, nice. Mate, not to turn on a sour note and tell me where to go, which I know you will if you don't like it, but mate, you're a defending world champion and a bronze medalist in 2 of the events. Then comes the Gold Coast in 2023 and you're not picked. Mm-hmm. What happened there? How was that?
That's a very good question, and one that I still don't have a logical answer for, if I'm being honest. But Shannon McElroy was in the same boat. He was defending world singles champ, and it was an extremely tough decision to take, because we played through, like after the Worlds in 16, and Asia Pacifics was on the Gold Coast, and we made all 4 finals with the team. With there was Shannon, myself, Gary Lawson, Jamie Hill, and Mike Kernan, and Shannon won the singles, and Shannon and Gary won the pairs, and we were in the triples and fours final, lost them both to Australia, and we thought, well, we're heading down a pretty good track here, and look, all things were heading to being what I thought was going to be a pretty similar team for 2023, but certainly wasn't to be, and the selectors had different ideas, and look, it's not about, I guess, having a crack at the players that were selected, but there was certainly no, from my point of view, logical reason why they left us out. But them's the breaks. You can't sort of sit back and toss the toys for too long. It's it's no different from I think that was the 3rd or 4th occasion that I've missed out on an event and been not that far away from. So it was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like look forward and look to the next event and go from there, I guess.
Just step in there. That's perfect for listeners out there, no matter what level you play at, whether it be just club level, regional, national, or you like Ali, you've been a world champions, you've been to all the big events, and yet within our sport, everyone gets knockbacks and everyone gets those setbacks that sometimes you think, oh, I wish that didn't happen, or it's what you do after that fact that, mightn't go your way, you might get selected for something, but I guess what you just said there, Ali, is that mindset of looking to that next event and what can I do next and what can I control to maybe change the next event selection, or that might be your next club selection, that might be what grade you're in, and really good for our listeners to take that on board, that it happens at the elite level as well, happens at the highest level, that there's setbacks and things that don't go your way, but it's that mindset that you take after that of the direction of the path that you go in then. So some good insight.
I mean, you look
there.
at it from the point of view that like for most and even club level, it might only be 2 or 3 selectors and their opinions, so it's only taking one person to have a differing opinion that might be the difference between you getting what you want at the spot and not. And you would hope from that situation that you'd get feedback that's going to help you learn, because I mean, I'm the big fan of, right, I'll wait a little while and then, I'll be on the phone or the email going, righto, what do I need to do, or what haven't I done that I need to do to be back in the reckoning? So, and we had those conversations, and, I decided from that righto, I've finished, packing the sad and all that sort of thing, and I moved on, and there wasn't anything more that I could achieve from the conversations more than, righto, I'm going to go out there and play well and try and prove them wrong.
Yep. If only everyone had that mindset. No toys out of the cart, no dummy spits, just right up. Well, and that's coming from someone who's a current world champion, still in form, an established member of the team. So definitely a lot to take from that.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, that was Ali Forsyth. Simon, as normal, mate, I did quite a lot of the talking. You did most of the listening. So we'll go to you now. What did you take from that first part of the interview?
I think his remembering the heavy defeats. Like, you think of elite players and all they do is win, but those heavy defeats really affect those players, and it's their mindset of, what am I going to do after a heavy defeat? Get back on the green. How am I going to put that right? What did I do wrong? It's that kind of mindset, and that's what makes them elite players, and that's what makes them the best in their country and at their club. And yeah, I thought that came across a lot from Ali. And from that, those heavy defeats, and some of those defeats are from not necessarily the big nations and the big players and the big names. It's being caught out by, as Ali said in his early career, like going out and maybe learning that he needs to treat everyone the same and every bowler the same. So that's something we can all do no matter what level we play, whoever we come up against, and treating everyone the same, that you go out and with the same mindset, and hopefully you perform to your best. And yeah, that was definitely something that I took from that interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he touched on, I think it was one of his early major championships. He was all but through, and sort of took the foot off the pedal because he was playing what would be perceived as a lesser nation and got caught out.
Yeah,
which we've seen happen every now and again at Commonwealth Games and World Championships. There's always one or two little sneaky ones that get through there that you wouldn't have picked on paper. Just like you wouldn't have picked Tarrant Point on paper finishing bottom of the platinum. No comment.
No comment.
What else did you get out of that one, mate?
Oh, look, the process that Ali goes through, it's just another bowl. Just another bowl.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen Ali play so many massive bowls at the time that he spent at Tarrant Point, and you just think, how can he keep doing it? But in his mind, it's just another bowl. It's not that it's pressure or feeling the pressure. And I think, yeah, that's something I think was a good point that he raised, that it's just another bowl.
Yeah. One thing I found from, like, we looked a bit at Ali's career last year when we did the GOAT podcast. He didn't make it through. We'll just remind him of that. But there's some legends that come from New Zealand. But just the way his career sort of kicked off, got me. Like when you dive into it, I mean, there's a lot of people like when they get in, like look at the Jackaroos or even back at home in Ireland, mate. It's nearly harder to get out than it is to get in. Ali was a world champion before he made his black cap debut.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, so he'd actually gone and won the world champion singles before being picked for the black caps. Then he got his debut at the Asia Pacifics. Went okay, but then he wasn't included in the next one leading into the Commonwealth Games and missed out the Commonwealth Games. So world champion, just got your cap, drop back out again, still come back and do what he's done. Just shows you, again, mindset, which we'll go into as well with him, like how he's able to come back for that and just go back and basically take it on the chin. You don't like it.
Mm.
But, you know, how do you react to it? It's going to determine how good of a player or how you're going to be remembered. And he's just obviously copped that on the chin, got straight back into it, and he was back there at the World Championships in 2008. Just missed out on making a final in the singles, so he did.
Yeah, well, that was part one, DJ. So looking forward to part two and
Absolutely
listening to a bit more from Ali Forsyth, the legend that he is on the Bulls green and known by everyone, not only in New South Wales, Victoria, New Zealand, all over. So
yeah,
looking forward to that part two coming up next week. So tune in, listeners, hit that follow button and make sure you are following the Best Bulls podcast out there and getting all the insights from the best players and top players from around the nations.
I think I'll wrap us up for this week then, Toomey. That was a pretty good conclusion from yourself. So you're trying to branch out on your own and take over from me, but yeah, that'll do for this week. We will be back next week, folks. We've got a pretty big build up into Platinum Pennant. Don't like to plug Bulls New South Wales too much, but tune into the live streams. I'm sure you'll be entertained. Some dulcet tones from yours truly. Sign me up, mate. Sign me up. We'll be down for round 11. Yep, down for. Don't worry, mate. Your game doesn't mean anything. You're not making the live stream. No, looking forward to getting down there, Cabramatta. We'll do a bit of a lead into that next week on the podcast. It is a pretty big one. So much could happen. It's almost living up to the drama of last year. Last year was very much around the final, but there's a lot of talk around about qualifying for the finals this time around. So looking forward to talk about that, mate. And obviously, a lot of fun with Ali. So part two will be just as good as part one, folks, if not better. So tune in for that one, as Simon says. Always, folks. Good luck to you, Simon, for into region to start with.
Thank you. Yep.
You know, hopefully those Engadine boys can lift your standards a bit and maybe get you some momentum going into the last round of Platinum.
Get us a few wins.
So I know mathematically you can avoid relegation, so you just never know. Hopefully them Engadine boys rub off on you. Do you us a favour as well against Mount Lewis.
Yep.
But as always, folks, keep that little disc on the inside.
And good luck on those greens. The views, information, or opinions expressed during What a Load of Bulls podcast episodes are solely those of the individuals involved and do not represent those of any group, organization, or employer associated or affiliated to individuals. This podcast is for general information purposes only, to educate and inform. This podcast does not constitute professional advice or services. What a Load of Bulls does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed or statements made within episodes.